Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody. What's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald. Welcome to Big 12 Insiders, everybody. Appreciate everybody being in here. We're doing this one live today. We haven't had a lot of live shows in a long time, and I thought, you know what? Let's have a little live show today. So that's what we're doing. Talking, look, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, Fitz, as far as the college football, college athletics in general. But quite frankly, I am sick and tired of Greg Sankey, just whining and complaining that everybody's blaming him for what's going on with college athletics. Newsflash, it's your fault. It's literally your fault. And you're unapologetic. I mean, how many times has he said, I'm unapologetic for wanting the SEC to have as much say-so, as much power as possible, but you're literally trashing college athletics on the way to doing so, and you don't seem to care. So that's why people are upset. That's what we're going to talk about today, because I don't want to hear the whining anymore. Stop with the whining. So before we get started, remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in that comment section, and hit that notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. Fitz, how you doing today, man?
I'm good. I feel bad for Greg Sankey. He's got such a hard job. He's probably underpaid, and he has to take a little bit of criticism on occasion. It's awful. It's awful. I hope he's doing okay. Greg, reach out if you got a problem. I'm here for you, man. I think you're the smartest guy in college athletics. I can't do this anymore. I hate the guy. I appreciate the fact that he's the SEC commissioner, that his first job is to look out for his conference. Same with every other commissioner.
Absolutely. Right.
But to literally say he doesn't want anything to do with the greater good of college athletics. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't care about that. And then falsely accuse two conferences of putting out a press release together, which they didn't do. I think we should all be concerned about the greater good.
Yep.
And I'll just say it. I think he's losing allies. I'm seeing stuff now from Big Ten and even SEC folks that are like, it was too far. He is literally, if he can get an extra $10 for his schools, he would destroy everyone else's athletic program.
Yep.
Big B, I have no use for him. And I have no use for anyone from the SEC that has that opinion. I think it is time to entertain the idea of the SEC leaving the NCAA, as he brought up at his press conference. I don't think the Big Ten will go with them. They can just do their own thing. Just set up your own league, man. You can play each other and, because you're the best ever, and then have fun with the basketball and baseball tournaments that you won't
and that's what I was going to go, and we talk about that later, but let's stick with that right there, Fitz, right now. The SEC is basically wanting the Big Ten to go along with their plan to just say, you know what, screw all of this. And this has all been speculation. Heck, we've been talking about this for a year, on what they thought. Well, now the SEC is basically just coming out and saying it. We need to leave. I've got commissioners asking me, or athletic directors asking me, why are we even in the NCAA? Well, you should say, well, we can't leave because you need somebody to leave with you. But here's the thing, and you've said it on many occasions, and I've heard other people, dance around it, but you haven't, Fitz. You've been right on it and said, if you leave, that'll be fine, but nobody else will tune into your games.
Right.
The reason that people tune in now is because you're part of the greater good of the entire college football community. You're part of that. If you are no longer a part of that, I'm sorry, people aren't going to still tune in. People in Kansas City aren't going to watch the Alabama-Auburn game like they do now. People are, there's no reason for them to watch it. People in, I don't know, wherever you want to say, in Arizona, Las Vegas, they're not going to be tuning in to the Alabama-Tennessee game like they do now because they have no reason to tune in. And the Big Ten understands that, I believe, Fitz. I think the Big Ten understands that, like, hold on a second. Look, we were willing to take all of this money and be a part of having a huge say-so in the college football playoff. But you haven't heard the Big Ten or anybody coming out saying, well, we should just leave. We should just go with the SEC. We should just get rid of the NCAA and just jump out of there. Because they know. Because as much as they love college football, and Big Ten is huge college football, it's also about basketball. And if you're not part of March Madness, I'm sorry, March Madness will go on if there's no SEC teams involved. It will go on, and people will be just fine. And the Big Ten wants zero part of that. Zero part of that. And they also don't want any part of what the SEC, they're just trying to be the bully. I think that's a big thing about this, is that they don't want any part of being the bully, where the SEC literally doesn't care, Fitz.
Yeah. I don't watch the Canadian Football League, and I won't watch the Southern College Football League either.
No,
I mean, I don't, my team that I cover and, my alma mater doesn't play those teams. They do now. So, if K-State's having a good season and I need to keep an eye on teams that they might meet in the playoff, I'll watch those games. I generally watch all Big 12 games. I don't have a lot of time while covering a team. I don't have a lot of time to watch other games, but I think people will just revert to watching their teams and the teams that they might play. And if the SEC is not in that group, they're not going to watch those games.
Mm-mm.
I don't see any way ESPN, if they really stop and think about this, will go along with this. Maybe they will. They're not the brightest company, so maybe they would. But I'm kind of to the point now where quit talking. Just go ahead and leave. Just leave. I don't think the Big Ten, when push comes to shove, will go with them. I don't. And I almost feel like Fox is trying to bait ESPN into this.
Yeah.
Because if ESPN takes the SEC out and the Big Ten stays, Fox owns college football.
Yes, they do. And they know it. They know it. And that the funny thing about that is, look, ESPN is what it is, but they have the best college game day show. I mean, it is the best. It just is. Now, we may not agree with all the characters that are involved, but it's the best show. Fox is trying to play catch up, but they won't have to play catch up anymore if that happens.
No,
they'll have it by default.
Yep.
Because what else are you going to talk about if you're the SEC game day? You're just going to talk about that? It just won't be the same, people. It won't be the same. Here's the thing, Fitz. The SEC is trying to lay down the law with the ACC and the Big 12. You touched on this at the beginning, talking about, joint press releases. First of all, it wasn't a joint press release.
No.
I thought that was laughable. But even if it was, so what? What are you mad about? What are you crying about, Greg Sankey? Yeah, I mean, you're mad because they're looking out for what's best for college football. And again, I know it's all college athletics, but the main driver is college football. They're trying to look out for the best for that, and you aren't. And they called your bluff, and they basically called you out on it, and you don't like that. Well, sometimes the truth hurts.
Yeah.
We've heard that since we were very little kids, Fitz, that the truth hurts sometimes. We don't like it, because it does hurt, but that's the truth. You're trying to destroy everything based on what's good for your conference and nobody else. When all you have to do is take a step back and say, I'm the king. I can still be the king, but everybody else can eat as well. Because if you're the king and you have nothing to rule over, then what good does it do to be the king?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been my whole point all along. I think most sane people recognize that the SEC is the best conference. It just is. Now everybody in the conference isn't the greatest, but that doesn't matter. They are the best conference
overall.
But yeah, overall, you're the best conference. It just is what it is. But if you sit and you act like nothing else matters,
then
what are we talking about here? That's my whole point. What are we talking about?
They are so dismissive of every other conference, including the Big Ten. The Big Ten, they view as the Washington Generals.
They do.
And the results on the field aren't showing that right now, by the way.
No.
I love what Greg Sankey said. Look, we were fine with 4. We would have had half the field. That defined everything you need to know. All he cares about is that. And by going to 12 and making them win at least one more game, if not 2 more games, he knows his teams might lose. And they did. And they did. There was no, I watched, there was an SEC team in that championship. Nope. And so that's why the 12-team playoff didn't work, because the SEC is the best and they weren't in it. So that didn't work.
Correct.
He's got this default setting that he can't get past. That the SEC does lose football games to other conferences.
They do.
Now they're working on only playing non-conference games with the Big Ten in terms of power conferences, because then the ACC and Big 12 could never close the gap. We're not going to play you. You can't beat us if we don't play you. We win. Yep. He's a turd. The guy's a turd. He just is.
Well, the one flex that the Big Ten is actually putting out there, and I love it, because there's all this talk of the SEC having and the Big Ten getting together and having kind of like the college basketball, how they have, these challenges between conferences. And they're like, hey, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get together and play one another, have one game every year. And the Big Ten is saying, until you play non-conference games, that's not going to happen. They're standing up, pushing back, and saying it's a great idea. We would love to do it. As soon as you schedule non-conference games, we'll be more than happy to do that. But if you're not going to schedule non-conference games and you're going to play 8, and then all of a sudden you want to have all these teams to be in the college football playoff and could potentially have more, even though, they're talking about having just 4-4, which I don't think that's going to pass. I don't think that's going to work. I don't think the 4-4, why would you, as the ACC and the Big 12, why would you just say, yep, that's fine? No, I don't think they're going to do that. But having said all of that, the Big Ten is standing up and saying, no, we're not doing that. We're pushing back. You schedule non-conference games, and then everything can be equal, and then we'll do it. But if you don't want it to be equal, well, then we have no use for that. Doesn't make any sense to us. And I agree wholeheartedly, because there's no reason. And the ACC, the same thing with them. Play non-conference games. No more of this 8 nonsense. Let's get it all on an equal playing field. And if the ACC said, Big 12, we need to have the same type of deal, great. Schedule an extra conference game, and we'll do it. Until you do. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to back off what we're doing in conference game. We're not going to back off on playing 9 games. No, that's not good for our fan base. It's not good for our bottom dollar. We're not doing that. You guys need to step up to the plate, and then we'll make all of this happen. And until conferences can get on the same wavelength with just scheduling fits, it's a problem. If you can't agree on that, it's a problem. And SEC just wants to, we want to play the least amount of conference games. We'll schedule one good team a year, but that's it. Nobody else. And then we'll play each other and just claim that we're playing the best competition.
Here's the solution. Here's the solution. If he also complained about the committee because, they didn't pick all of his teams. And I agree. I don't think the committee did a good job, but it has nothing to do with leaving out SEC teams. Picking SMU over BYU just makes no sense when the teams actually played and the home team lost. That makes no sense that that team got in. So I'm with you. Get rid of the committee. And you know what? If you don't mess with the algorithm in this day of AI, you should be able to come up with a system that will spit out computer rankings that make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that solves this unequal conference game scheduling problem is every game you play against a Power 4 opponent gets bonus points. So if you're only going to play 8 conference games, then 1 non-conference game against someone like Georgia plays Georgia Tech, okay, you got 9 games. West Virginia just went 10-2, and they played 11. They're in.
Yeah.
They're in. And the side effect of that might be schools might say, yeah, we'll do that. We'll only play 2 bad teams or 1 bad team, or, we'll go ahead and do 11 games against power schools. You're crazy. But if it helps you, maybe you get in. The other thing he said, Big B, that I can't wrap my mind around is he truly believes strength of schedule is more important than wins and losses.
He said that too. He literally said that.
Look, I'm going to agree that your conference strength of schedule should be better in the SEC, depending on who you play. I mean, you can have a weak conference schedule in the SEC. We've seen it.
Look at Texas's last year.
Yeah, Texas had it. But the name of the game is winning. The name of any athletic endeavor is to win. Oh, we lost, but they were really good and we looked good. We felt good about it. Yeah, well, that's great. None of this makes sense. He's like a guy trying to explain math that doesn't understand math. And he's just come up with these weird things that when in the world does strength of schedule mean more than wins and losses? Strength of schedule helps break the ties created by wins and losses. It doesn't supersede it. It's an assistant in then moving to the next step of deciding which 9-3 team's better. Oh, man, I'm so sick of him. I don't know what can be done about him, because the SEC does have a lot of power, and they're an extension of ESPN now, which is also a problem. And I'm beginning to wonder if there isn't something, I want to say illegal, but unsavory about this relationship, and how ESPN might be actually trying to skew everything in their favor by their coverage, by saying, this is the best game. This is the best. These are the best teams. And the committee's sitting in this room like, yeah, we're watching. Yeah. And, I just think they have too much power in the selection process. And now they're tied to a specific conference that they want to have an advantage. We got a problem with that.
Yeah, that's tricky. That's real tricky. And the problem with all of it, and you mentioned it before, it's just like they're trying to take control, and they've manipulated everything. They manipulate the rankings at the beginning of the year. They have these rankings that come out, and you have your Texas A&Ms of the world, and you have your Missouris of the world that are all going to be ranked football teams. And, even though like at the end of the year, you'll see 2 teams pop into number 23 and number 25, and they have 5 losses. And I'm like, what are we talking about here? Why are these teams ranked that have 5 losses? Because then the strength of schedule, as you mentioned, well, they beat this team, so now their strength of schedule looks better. I mean, that's the type of manipulation that's been going on for years. And I think that Greg Sankey is at the point where, people are at the point of they've caught on, and they're starting to talk about it more. And Greg Sankey doesn't like that. He's frustrated that the conversation is now about him and how he's running the conference, or running college football, college athletics, and that he's running it into the ground only for the SEC. And he doesn't care about everybody else. And now everybody understands. And now they're like, well, What are you talking about? And now he's talking in circles, kind of what you mentioned, and saying things that he doesn't even believe, Fitz.
No.
There's no way that Greg Sankey believes that strength of schedule matters more than actual wins. He doesn't believe that, but he said it because he's backed into a corner. That's what people do. They get backed into a corner. They'll just say anything to try to get out of it. And that's literally what this man is doing. Now he's just saying anything. He's talking about joint press releases. You know, I don't need anybody to teach me about the greater good of football. Now he's lashing out. Now he's mad because people are calling you out for what you have done. And you can't get by with saying, and this is another point, Fitz, he can't get by with saying, well, we're just dominating everything right now, because the last 2 years you haven't been in the championship game. And 2 years ago, you had a team that if Georgia makes it, nobody complained. People complained because they placed Alabama in over an undefeated football team. And then what'd they do? They turned around and got beat. So that's the problem that he can't get past, because people are blaming him, talking about him, and he has nothing to stand on. Well, you can't just continue to stand on, well, we're the best. Well, are you? I mean, show me that you're the best. Where are you showing me that you're the best? Because the last 2 years, you haven't been the best, you know, and it hasn't even been up for debate. You know, you're not the best. You don't have the best team in college football. You didn't have that. So now what? Tell me something else. And then this whole manipulation, especially with the college football rankings, it's like I talked about. I just fear that, you know, with the whole, well, they're going to rank all these teams and that's who's going to make the playoff. And, you know, the conference champions will get in, but the seedings are going to be the seedings. I just fear the committee, which the committee is a problem. They're just going to load it up with these teams. And just, I mean, they did it last year. You already brought it up. There's no way that BYU doesn't make it over a team that they beat on the road. That's where else does that matter? You have the same record and I beat you, but you get in over me because you played in a worse league and qualified for the conference championship where I lost out because of a tiebreaker. Are you, huh? I mean, it doesn't even make sense, but that's what they're doing. That's what they did. And so and Sankey he's scrambling right now, people. He's scrambling. And that's the problem. The Big 12 is fighting back. The ACC is fighting back. And the Big 10 is kind of looking on. Kind of like, you know, when Florida State sued the ACC. And Clemson got into the lawsuit, but they were more of, you know, I just want to see what is going on with the money. Where Florida State was like, I want it now. We're going to leave. We're going to do this. Where Clemson's like, well, we just want to look and see, you know, what's going on. We'll join in, but I just show us where the money is. That's where the Big 10 is. Hey, we're getting this check. Things are fine. We'll go along with it, but you know, you keep going down this slippery slope and this crazy rabbit hole, man. I'm too big to go down this rabbit hole. I won't fit. And I don't even want to try to squeeze in there with you. That's where I think the Big 10 is. And I love seeing Greg Sankey squirm, Fitz. Yeah. I love it. He is unraveling. Now, don't get me wrong. He has the power.
Right.
But if he just took a rational stance and just said, what is good for everybody? But he hasn't. And he keeps coming out and saying it. He literally said it the other day to Paul Feinbaum. I'm unapologetically for the greater good of only the SEC. Well, if that's the way you are, then you can't be mad about the criticism.
No. You know what I love about his press conferences? He holds these press conferences and then puts off this air like, how dare you ask me, Greg Sankey, a question like that? I am Greg Sankey. You don't ask that. You know, I mean, the greater good thing just set him off like he got accused of some crime.
Correct.
Really, you're upset by people looking out for the greater good of college football and college athletics? That's what torques you? Really? This guy, and you mentioned it at the top of the show. I like the 5 champion, 11 at large bids, but only only if the entire algorithm, selection process, whatever you're going to go with, is transparent.
Yes.
Transparent. We cannot have college athletic administrators making these decisions.
No.
They have too much skin in the game, whether it's their team or conference. You got to leave the room. Bullshit. They leave the room. Don't worry, Tony, we got you. I mean, it's a guys club. No. I've said it for a long time. I think a group of random podcasters that look at college athletics as a whole would be a better selection committee.
Absolutely.
I believe that. I believe behind the scenes journalists. It used to have desk people in newspapers. I don't even know if they have them anymore. Nobody seems to be copy editing. But I said for a long time that the best poll would be copy editors because they're reading all the copy. They're not at a game. I don't feel equipped to vote in a preseason or postseason poll because every Saturday I'm at a game for 8 hours before and after and working. I'm not sitting around watching college football. I want people that watch college football from the Thursday night game until Hawaii's done playing.
Right.
That's what I want. They have a good idea how everything compares. Too many of the voters start with the blue bloods. Okay, they get the advantage. They're the blue bloods. We're gonna rank them in the preseason poll and skew everything the rest of the year because of it. And you know, there's too many SEC voters. Go look at that poll.
Mm-hmm.
It is loaded. Big B, I don't see a resolution to this that will be satisfactory to the SEC and then everyone else. And I think the Big Ten is going to start moving into that direction. I just do. I think outwardly they might tag along the SEC and say, yeah. But I don't see Big Ten schools like Ohio State or Penn State, Michigan, well, maybe Michigan, that really want to destroy college football just so they can make a buck. But the SEC, it just means more. They chant SEC at games. It's become, I'm going to say it, a football cult. And they think they're superior in every way. And reality does not support that.
Yeah.
They have some of the best teams. Absolutely. So does the Big Ten. I get that. More so than the Big 12 or the ACC. I get that. But you get down in that conference? It's not what you're saying it is. I mean, you want the fourth team in from the SEC and only 2 teams in from the Big 12. I guarantee you that number 2 team in the Big 12 is better than 3 and 4. I guarantee it because you have a drop off in that conference and they don't ever want to admit it. And why was Alabama left out? They lost to bad teams.
Yeah.
They didn't just lose. They didn't lose to like Georgia and Tennessee and, Missouri, good teams that were good last year. Lost to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. They were better. They were okay. I mean, it helps when you play 4 non-conference games and you can schedule 4 wins. You fart in 2 games and pull out a victory, you're in a bowl.
Yep.
And Greg Sankey's swearing if you were in the Big 12, you would be 12-0. I mean, you can't, he's so irrational at this point, you can't even deal with him.
Yeah. It is what it is, apparently, because he's digging in his heels. But this fight's not over, people. It's not over. Trust me. I think it's just beginning. Because I think the legs, and in closing all of this down is it's only going to take one team from the ACC other than Clemson and a team from the Big 12 to win this thing.
Mm-hmm.
They go win it. it'll turn the college football playoff upside down on its head, because there will literally be no room to stand on for the SEC, Greg Sankey. They would be beside themselves, absolutely beside themselves.
Shut
because
out.
Now it would be, well, hold on a second. You said we were terrible. Well, you put us at 12. Oh, we just ran the table and we won this thing. So now what? Or you put us at 14. Oh, we just ran the table and won this thing. So now what are you going to say? What could you possibly say? That's what it's going to take. And at that point, he would have to shut up, and the Big Ten would say, see, we were right not to say anything all along, because we understand anybody can win this thing. It's football. Anybody can win this thing if given an equal opportunity. But that's the whole point. The SEC doesn't want to give the equal opportunity.
Nope.
They don't want to do that. They want it all for themselves. And so the more, kind of like the NCAA tournament this year. Now, Florida was one of the best teams in the country. There was no doubt about that. But the bottom line is that they want to keep, they put so many teams in, the more opportunities to win and do this. They did that. Would Florida have won the whole thing if there were only 2 SEC teams in the tournament? Probably. But that's not what the SEC wanted. They wanted as many as they could possibly get in. So, maybe we can get 4 teams in the Final Four. It's craziness, but I don't know, Fitz. That's just my thoughts wrapping this thing up. It's crazy.
I just want to give a shout out to Utah AD Mark Harlan, who said what we agree with. You got to win. If you're the Big 12, you get 1 team in a playoff, 2 teams, 3 teams, 4 teams. Doesn't matter. You got to win. Go win those games. And you know what? I've said this before. Utah and TCU are in the Big 12. They're in a major conference, a power conference, because that's what they did when they weren't.
Correct. They won.
They went out and played people, beat people, took them to the wire, proved that they were good enough to play teams that by conference were certainly better. And now to see Greg Sankey moving away from trying to get his teams, his conference away from scheduling ACC and Big 12 tells me one thing. Dude, he's worried.
Yep.
I think a lot of this bluster is to cover up the fact that they haven't been in the championship for 2 years, and he's beginning to wonder, well, if LSU schedules, I don't know, Utah in the non-conference, and Utah's normal Utah might win. Utah will win in one of the 2, and that doesn't serve the purposes of the SEC. And that's all, as he said, that's all he cares about.
Yeah.
He doesn't just care about proving the SEC's better. He's willing to rig the system to make the SEC be better. And that's bullshit.
That's the problem. They're willing to rig it to make them seem like they're better, when in actuality, in totality, they're not that much better than anybody else. So, well, I appreciate you, Fitz, giving us the time today, man. I thought it was an important topic. Also thought it was important to talk live. Thank everybody for getting in the chat. I appreciate you guys. Do us a favor, like the video once it goes off. We'll be doing more lives, I feel like, during the off season. It's just fun to get out here and talk about this kind of stuff. So we appreciate you guys. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Big 12 sports. Thank you guys, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.